they have an incentive, obviously, to not have the parking spots filled up by derelict cars left there, abandoned for weeks. They have an incentive to have timely turnover, so customers can get in their stores and to handle situations, keep the street clean and stuff like that. I would think that's a property rights issue, and that could better be addressed, not from a institution that claims a coercive monopoly that says we have the sole ability to provide this good or service, but through competition. So yes, I would think there's a need for this type of services that these three individuals use. I would just think that they could be provided more efficiently and through other mechanisms.
So you're supportive of the parking enforcement officers doing their jobs on a daily basis then?
Well, I respect them as individuals, but I prefer that any person, there's a number of other people in this room who have badges on or sitting to my left who are, at the end of the day, their salaries paid for by money taken from other people, and I don't think that's not conducive to a free society. I think that law, for example, the idea of a rule of law is false, because it says like some people have the authority to write a text on paper and then to interpret it. So the incentive is for them to protect their own, to conflate legislation as law, to say more actions that were once legal are illegal. That those are the built-in incentives. So again, to answer your question, there would be a demand for people to have a safe, clear streets, but the question is how could it be better provided?
Well, do you agree with this sentiment? Quote, "It would be nice to shut down parking enforcement. People who own businesses downtown instead of city government should own the parking spaces." Do you agree with that? Can we read it again? Can we read it again?
Sure.
It would be nice to shut down parking enforcement. Do you agree with that concept?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, I don't agree with shutting down. That to me, evokes like someone flipping a switch or from the top down saying you're shut down or this agency is no more. I prefer to work from the bottom up, sharing ideas. So I think these institutions are built on people's the authority they grant them, and so it would be eroded one mind at a time, as it were.
You know that Mr. Freeman espouses that kind of a concept, don't you? You know that Mr. Freeman has said it would be nice to shut down parking enforcement. You've heard him say words to that effect, haven't you?
I don't want to speak. I don't want to answer the affirmative if I haven't. I don't specifically recall an instance where he said that in my presence.
But you've heard him say that in not so many words, or in as many words, haven't you?
I've heard him.
One second, there's an objection. Objection, relevance.
First of all, I don't understand why this witness remains the party in this case. There's no evidence of any significant involvement on his part. But again, that's ultimately an issue that the city's going to have to decide whether to withdraw or to hold on to act. But even assuming at this point that he's off the party, technically he clearly is, I don't understand how any differences between his ideology and that of another defendant here has any bearing whatsoever on establishing any of the elements of the claim that the city of Keene needs to establish against him.
Those can offer for a different purpose. You can respond to that.
It's very relevant both to the concept of tortious interference with employment relationships as well as the conspiracy theory.
The objection's overruled.
So, Mr. Peter, you would like to see the city parking enforcement shut down in some manner over a period of years or time, wouldn't you?
I mean, I'd ask you to define what the city of Keene is.
Excuse me?
I said I'd ask you to define what the city of Keene is. I've heard that reference a number of times, and I don't know what the city of Keene is.
Well, I mean, the city of Keene is a political body of government. actual good of the rest of the citizens and out-of-staters.
Would you say, what's been going on has been for the social good of the community? I mean, I would ask you, can you point to a contract
This is
I've
not,
signed with
this
the
is not,
city?
this is not a dialogue back and forth, this is not a question where you both pose questions. If you have an objection to the specific question that's posed, we can deal with it, but, if you don't understand a question, you can ask for it to be clarified, but this is not a time for you to ask questions of Attorney
So,
Bauer.
would you answer my question?
Yeah, I mean,
We would
I
like.
can't answer that question based on the responses you're looking for, because I don't believe that the city of Keene has any legitimacy upon which your question is based.
Okay, let's assume that the city of Keene has the lawful authority to regulate parking and safety. Can we assume that just for the sake of this discussion? You don't have to agree with it, but can we assume it?
I don't want to allow myself to be pigeonholed into a paradigm that I don't think makes sense. I don't want to believe an institution based on violence should exist, and I don't want to perpetuate it by buying into it.
Okay, let's try this. These three folks right here, you know Lynn and Jane and Alan, don't you?
I mean, I've had a conversation with Alan that was expressed. Lyndon and Jane, I honestly, up to a few weeks ago, I didn't know who Linda and who Jane were. I knew the names, but I have not interacted with them to the extent that I was on a personal basis and that I would be able to recognize them and call them out by name. So,
You know they work for the city of Keene, right?
sure.
And you know that their jobs are to read meters, chalk meters, or chalk tires, and basically enforce the parking laws and regulations in the city of Keene. You know that, don't you, Peter?
Well, I also know their
No,
job is
just
supposed
answer
to.
my question first, and then you can throw in whatever you want. You know that, don't you?
I know their job is also entail providing, aiding the public, and that's not happened. I know things like that haven't been done, so I wouldn't give you affirmative to the question you're asking as you see.
And this this concept about shutting down parking enforcement, that's something that you agree with, isn't it?
Not necessarily. I mean, again, I'm not, the question you're asking doesn't allow me to answer with my own thought on the issue, on the larger question.
No, let's do the specific question. You would agree and you would espouse to shut down parking enforcement, wouldn't you?
Your Honor.
I'm so tired of asking it too, John, but I gotta get
Wait,
an answer.
objection. First of all, it was asked and answered, and the witness answered the question correctly. But I have a second objection, Your Honor, which is, it's this type of ideological interrogation, which, under the First Amendment, the courts are not supposed to be getting into. I mean, the issue here is not what this gentleman's ideas are. I mean, the laws don't vary, if you believe in the laws, don't vary
Let me
depending
say
on
this.
the ideology.
I agree with that the issue of what people's ideas or beliefs are is not the issue before the court. The issue before the court really is and specifically, I take it Attorney Bowers is going there to try to establish some link in the conspiracy allegation or some allegation along those lines. I understand your point. I do not mean this to turn this into a discussion about or a debate about what people's individual political beliefs are. That is not what I intend from this hearing.
Nor I, Your Honor. I'm here on an employment issue that has something to do with overlapping issues of rights. So back to you, Mr. Meyer. I'm sorry, Mr. Iyer. With regard to my questions, it would be nice to shut down parking enforcement. People who own businesses downtown instead of the city government should own those parking spaces. Agree?
I agree that's the text on that paper. I don't know what else I'm agreeing to.
Is that part of why your business, your organization is part of this card, which has been marked as Exhibit 4?
I can't again, it's definitely not a business, and I'm speaking for myself, not an organization. And as for this particular quote that you referenced, again, it's part of a larger question. I mean, I would say, yes, like property owners should have the say on how the property gets used, and that would create the proper incentives for them to employ people who provide this service that the parking enforcement officers are doing now.
Well, don't you recognize that the city streets are not private property, they are public property?
Yeah, hence my constant harkening back to this is about part of a bigger question.
And the bigger question is the social compact, isn't it? That we all live together in an organized society, and we give up some rights in order for everybody to benefit the whole. Isn't that, you agree with that, don't you?
I've not signed that contract. Can you show it to me?
So let's get back to KeenCopBlock.org. That's your website, isn't it?
It's, again, CopBlock's decentralized. There's over 140 groups, CopBlock, Peaceful Streets listed at CopBlock.org. They're all decentralized. Everybody's responsible for their actions. If I go out and do something wrong, it doesn't mean everybody else involved is in the wrong. And again, King CopBlocks is one of many groups of a lot of people who advocate the simple fact that nobody has extra rights. We're all people, and you know, I mean, to get to the larger question, you know, you here yourself are being paid for by money stolen from Keene taxpayers, and so, I mean, that's how I view the situation. And so to say let's shut it down, you know, what I'm trying to do is be involved with a peaceful evolution where people are
Evolution or
empowered.
revolution?
E-
Evolution.
An evolution.
Okay.
It's peaceful.
Yeah.
It's about ideas, because ideas have consequences. And right now, bad ideas are allowing these violent institutions to exist, to perpetuate, and to cage millions of people who haven't caused any victim. You know, and if you know, what would happen if I don't come here today? Some men with guns would potentially come after me at some point, and that's that violent institution at work, and I don't want to support that.
I'm going to shift gears for a second. I'm going to come back to what we were just talking about. I want to ask you, what do you do for work?
Can you clarify by that? What you mean by that?
How are you employed?
What does employed mean?
How do you obtain money for wages?
I mean, if people think I create value, they might, you know, I have no W-2 job, if that's what you're asking.
You pay taxes.
I try to live simply, and that's what I do.
You pay taxes.
I don't want to fund a violent organization.
Why don't you answer my question?
I just answered the question, so.
Do you pay taxes?
Your Honor.
Okay,
yeah.
I think, I do have a little concern here. We're getting into an area that Mr. Iyer is here without counsel. I'm a little concerned about his Fifth Amendment rights, quite
All right,
frankly.
well, I'll withdraw that. I'm trying to establish, don't you believe here that these three folks who are employees have the right to work without being subjected to a harassing, hostile work environment? Can you and I agree at least on that?
Not necessarily. I would say, you know, I'm involved with CopBlock because I see police employees as the teeth of this bad idea of the state.
We're talking about these people.
Right, I'm trying to draw an analogy, a parallel between police employees who, if I see somebody out there, you know, I know if I were stopped, I'd want someone to come and be there to create an objective record through a video camera, just as I would try to do that for them. And, you know, and a similar example to a lesser, you know, so I wouldn't say a police employee has any right not to be frustrated or whatever term you just noted it. And, you know, similarly, these three individuals, you know, I'm not, again, it's not a personal thing, it's they're working for this institution that has all these misallocations and, you know, sure.
With regard to this card, there's no doubt that you are CopBlock.org, aren't you? I mean, you talked about it, you know, there's a lot of people, but CAC is your organization, isn't it?
No, that's
your
not correct.
website, not it?
No, that's not correct.
That's not your website?
I am not CopBlock.org. I am not KeenCopBlock.org. That's not correct.
Did you put the website up?
I put KeenCopBlock up.
Okay. So how does, what arrangements have you made with
Ian or Graham or the other defendants in terms of putting your name on this card?
I don't know, it ended up on the card, I wasn't involved with the creation of the card.
Did you say, yeah, that's what, you've seen this card before, haven't you? You've seen this card before, haven't you?
Yes.
Okay. You've never raised any objection to you being affiliated with the activities that have been undertaken in which this card is used? You haven't objected, have you, to anybody?
Right, again, Copwalk's decentralized, and
Answer my question first.
I raised objection.
Have you raised objections with any of the defendants about being associated with this card?
With what being associated?
With your teamcopwalk.org?
It's not my organization, sir.
So you have a radio. Have you called Garrett on your radio?
Probably.
Have you called Mr. Freeman on your radio?
Probably.
Have you called Mr. Carlson on your radio?
It's Colson.
Colson, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sure I've probably talked to the other 5 folks lumped together collectively as Robin Hood on my radio at some point, not necessarily related to Robin Hood activities, but just to say, hey, what's going on, or hey, I'm over here. I mean, nothing criminal.
And you've also talked on your radio to the 5 other defendants, somewhere along the line, about where the parking enforcement officers are too, and asked,
No,
haven't
not
you?
necessarily.
Not necessarily?
Or I would say no, I haven't.